Welcome to the podcast, Stronger Together, where we have conversations about building relationships after loss.
I'm Nigel.
And I'm Daphne. And we're stronger together.
Who we are. We're using nicknames, and we'll be changing them periodically to keep us on our toes. I'm Nigel. I'm a widower. My wife and I were married for 23 years with kids, our own business to run, strong community involvement, and we served and worked for our church. We were busy living our lives, and one day, while watering her flowers, she collapsed. There was no warning, there were no obvious signs of a problem, and there was no saving her. I held her as she left her mortal body and was welcomed into Christ's loving arms. There was no one to blame, but my world went black. Life as I had known it was over. I had a lot of support and outreach from the church, friends, and the community, but it didn't lift the pain I felt. I gave away and sold most of our belongings because life was never going to be joyful again. Pretty much over in my mind. I stopped eating and went into a dark fog for a while, a year. I walked a lot to process my grief. I couldn't imagine loving or living in joy ever again.
I'm Daphne, and while my journey is a different one, we've experienced many of the same feelings. I was married for 27 years, raised a busy family, had my own small business, volunteered countless hours to our busy church, and was involved in our community as well. Then it began to unravel, bit by bit, until there was nothing left to save. The heartbreak almost broke me. I lost all of my connections, my business that I loved and had worked very hard for, all of my support systems, and all of the titles that had once defined me: mother, wife, business owner, sister in a church. It was all gone. Add to the mix the hurtful rumors, my foundational security, the financial security, and my identity. I couldn't begin to imagine being able to trust anyone again. I was never going to let my heart be broken like that. I was never going to be vulnerable again. I was never going to be a victim again. I was going to do this on my own. I was angry, scared, and I felt helpless. Here comes the good part.
Part of my grief journey was walking and being outside. I needed to get away from all of the reminders for just a little while every day. Daphne and I had been business acquaintances for years. One day as I walked by her shop, I was nudged by God to go inside and see how she was doing. I hadn't seen her in the year of my solitude, and I had no clue that she was hitting her own brick wall of grief.
In my relationship, we were trying to put the puzzle pieces of a broken marriage back together, but it was impossible at this point. Through the discoveries in couples counseling, which was awful, I discovered that my puzzle was a jigsaw of the ocean, and my pieces didn't fit at all into the other person's Rubik's Cube puzzle. I tried putting on a smile for those around me to hide my heartache, but I wasn't very good at it. I thought I was good at it. I wasn't. One day, Nigel walked into my shop. What a surprise. I wasn't even sure where he was living anymore. Turns out our journeys were about to cross paths. We'll be telling the rest of this story in future episodes.
Our topic today is learning to hope. We want you to know that there is hope for a future of happiness. I'm going to read Isaiah 43, 1 and 2. But now, this is what the Lord says. He who created you, Jacob, he who formed you, Israel, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name, you are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze.
It can feel scary to have hope, but hope is looking beyond the moment into possibilities. Hope can take us from our pain into purpose. Hope opens the dark curtain that has sheltered our hearts and lets the light back in.
Hope can feel scary, uncertain, and sometimes pointless. Faith and hope are woven together. Without one, you cannot have the other. Hope is what drives faith, and faith is what gives us hope.
So, what can we hope for? Well, one, we can hope for the energy to move forward in life. We can hope for the ability to see opportunities. We can hope for the strength to ask for help. We can hope for the vision to imagine a brighter future. And we can hope for the mercy to forgive those who have hurt us and to forgive ourselves.
Moving forward doesn't need to happen with big steps. You don't have to be in a hurry. If you only have the energy to brush your teeth today, perfect. Do that. Tomorrow you can try having the energy to take a shower and maybe eat something. One step at a time. Just keep moving forward and understand that your grief and how you process it is going to be different. Keep your toes pointing forward. You may not take a step today, you may not take a step tomorrow, but make sure you do not turn around. Keep your toes pointed in the right direction. This is only a season.
I think sometimes you have to fake that energy too. It's not going to come naturally to you.
No, you have to look for it.
You do. You have to reach down in there and fake it and say, well, I can get through a shower today. That's all I can do. And I'll put on clean pajamas from my dirty pajamas and call it a day and call that successful. Be happy that you moved that far that day. And the next day, you maybe change into actual yoga pants and a sweatshirt instead of your pajamas. And little by little, pretty soon, just by imitating the actions of moving forward, you notice that you are moving forward.
You'll give those actions life, reality.
Yeah. Seeing opportunities and taking the risk to step back into the world requires a different set of glasses. You've been seeing the world through one set, and now it's time to look through a different lens. You don't have to rebuild yourself all at once. Again, just like moving forward, looking for opportunities is going to take some effort on your part. And again, they may be really small things that you can do to create opportunities before opportunities appear to you naturally. So maybe call an old friend and have lunch. And if you don't feel like sitting in a restaurant because you know you're going to cry, have them come over to your house. Or go for a walk with that friend and nobody cares that you're crying outside. Reconnect with a family member, maybe somebody that you haven't talked to in a while. Join a group. There's a lot of grief support groups. There are church groups. There are hobbyist groups. Maybe a hiking club. Maybe something you've never tried before. Maybe just take a walk in a new area, someplace you haven't walked before, and just see what's there. Pretty soon your vision will clear, and you'll be able to see even more opportunities unfolding in front of you. They may not be opportunities you expected. That's how you know it's God. When those opportunities look really strange and you feel God moving you in those directions, that's usually where he wants you to go. You may never make sense of those.
Asking for help is one of the hardest things to do. We pride ourselves on being strong and self-sufficient and capable, what we're kind of driven to be. Strive to do that. But giving others the chance to serve us in our grief might help them too. These are the things to consider. What you do can be for you, but most likely is for somebody else in God's economy.
Which takes us to part of what we're going to talk about in our next podcast is growing through grief. Sometimes the best way to handle our grief is to go serve somebody else.
You don't have to do it all. Sometimes the biggest thing we need is just someone to listen, talk to, and listen to us cry. Back to the point earlier, do not be afraid to cry. I don't care if you're in public, in a restaurant, wherever you are. That's part of healing. That's part of the process. And know that in all of this, you are not alone.
So the last thing that we can hope for is forgiveness. Forgiveness can free us from the bonds of anger, but it's a long process sometimes. Anger was probably the number one emotion I had to deal with going through my grief journey. I was angry with myself. I was angry with my ex. I was angry with my family. I was angry with God. Pretty much the whole list of everything and everybody that could be in your life, I was angry at. And it scared me. I'm a people pleaser. I want everyone to be happy and sparkly, and I don't want anyone to be upset. So to face anger and to confront it and to actually embrace it and have it help me move forward was terrifying. I also learned that forgiveness doesn't mean that I was overlooking or accepting the bad behavior that happened or the hurts, but it did mean letting go of the hurt. Because if I let that anger control me, I was never going to be able to have a hopeful future. If I take that anger with me into the future, I'm blocking myself from blessings and opportunities to live a better life. Forgiving ourselves for our failings, our mistakes, and our weaknesses means that we now have room to grow again. It's kind of like weeding a garden. You got to pull those anger weeds out so that you have room to grow. It gives us clarity to reimagine a brighter future.
We know it can feel impossible to move beyond the place you're in right now. We understand the hesitation to keep going. You want to stay where you're at because in the moment it feels, if not comfortable, familiar. You will never be the same, but you can be hopeful that you won't be in this place forever.
We want to leave you with this thought. Someday you will laugh again, love again, live again. Be hopeful every day that God has you in his arms and is making plans for you. Thank you for listening to our message. Replay it as many times as you need to, and please share it with others who might need to hear it too. In our next podcast, we'll be discussing growing with grief.
I'm Nigel.
And I'm Daphne, and we're stronger together.